After 32 potential investors told him no, he knew he was on the right track. Part 2 of author and general Wally Johnson's coming up next on All American People. Good morning. Welcome to All American People. This morning we're at the 2010 Nonprofit of the Year as voted on by visitors to allamericancities.com, the American Red Cross. We're focused on part 2 of General Walter F. Johnson III, the author of I Can Do That, Advice for Spiritual Entrepreneurs. How exciting. Thank you for coming back in, General Johnson. I think you said yesterday we can call you Wally.
That's right, yes.
And virtually everyone calls you Wally.
That's exactly right.
Now, Wally, is that commonly a name short for Walter?
Well, they started calling me Wally in college. My roommate just automatically called me Wally. All my friends in Charleston called me Walter. I never had a nickname, but my roommate started Wally, and everybody on the college campus called me Wally, and since then everybody's been calling me Wally.
Yes, yes. So even in your 27 years, I think you shared with us yesterday in the Army, you were Wally.
I was Wally in the military.
Son of a
throughout
gun.
my life, yeah.
That is fantastic.
Only people who know me by Walter are the people in Charleston. And whenever somebody called me Walter, I think it's my mother or my wife.
My mother, my wife, or somebody down in Charleston.
That's right.
That is fascinating. Well, you shared with us yesterday, obviously, growing up in Charleston and the opportunity to expand beyond Charleston and literally to travel the world.
That's right,
to travel the world. Share with viewers what it was like growing up in Charleston.
Well, I had a full life in Charleston. We had humble beginnings, living in the projects, and not the best part of Charleston. The neighborhood wasn't the best. It was the projects, basically welfare. But we had people who had strong values, not only my relatives, especially my mother and father, but we had neighbors who had a lot of respect for the human being and a lot of respect for the young people and wanted all of us to do well. One of the biggest things about living in the project was to get a job with enough money that you can buy or rent a home outside of the projects. And I had fun. I never felt as though I was poor, didn't have a lot of material things, but it didn't matter. I thought everybody lived that way, so to speak. But I had some strong values that helped me even today. As I mentioned, that value, the Trinity with the capital T, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and the Trinity with the small t. That is, trust in the Lord and the power of prayer. Stay in school and get your education. And hard work, hard work, hard work. I give that advice to everybody I meet, especially my kids and my grandkids, to tell them to live by that and you will do well.
Yes, prayer is truly an active part of your life.
Without question. I pray early in the morning, I pray all day long. Prayer is an integral part of my life. I'm talking to God all the time. Now, in my elderly years, most of it is thank you for the wonderful life that you've given me and my family and friends.
Right. We recently had an author on, an author of a book called Teach Us to Pray. And he highlighted, he's a retired minister there in Conway, 29 years at Langston Baptist Church, and he highlighted how easy it is for folks to pray. Folks see in your book, I Can Do That, Advice for Spiritual Entrepreneurs, how easy it is to pray. You've got one sentence, two sentences, or as you say, wake up in the morning and spend an hour with the Lord.
Yeah, the simple prayers help me to pray as sincerely, devoutly, and faithfully as you did in the garden.
Yes.
Today I ask God to inspire me to help inspire others to do the right thing and come into the Lord. So it's simple. It's a conversation with God, a friend, but He's God.
Right. You shared with us yesterday that a lot of your time is now praying in a thankful mode.
Without question. I sort of calculated that about 40% of my prayer today is thanking God for the wonderful life that He's given me, the wonderful wife, great kids, super grandkids, friends, relatives. Can you imagine a guy out of the projects on welfare, made general officer in the United States Army of the most diversified corps in the Army, then became an executive with the American Hospital Association, went from a director, jumped over 5 vice presidents to become a senior vice president, started a company at the age of 56 and grew it to $150 million, and then sold it to Lockheed-Martin. God was an integral part of that. I give all the credit to God. God had a project. No way in the world I could have fathomed that.
Yeah.
And I know I didn't do it on my own. Of course, I had my wife and friends, especially my kids and others around me. But God needs to get the credit for that.
That is tremendous, Wally. And thank you for doing that. A
Thank
lot of
you.
folks don't take the time to do that, and they really need to, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. You shared with us yesterday, you and Doris were blessed with 6 children. We didn't have an opportunity to talk as much about them. Share with viewers a little bit about where they are now. Where are
Yeah.
the 6 of them?
Well, all 6 of the kids except one participated in the company. The youngest was in residence at Harvard University in neurosurgery. He's now a spine specialist. But his wife was the counsel, the chief counsel. She's a lawyer for the company. Then I had the next youngest son. He has a master's degree in business administration and a law degree from George Washington. And he was head of the director of operations and finance. Then I had another lawyer who has a master's degree in education. He handled human resources and operations. Then I had a daughter who handled all the real estate because we were buying real estate and going into other ventures. And I had another daughter. Both of 2 daughters are graduates of the University of South Carolina, and one has a master's degree in education because she taught school for many years.
Right.
And our youngest son, who attended Northern Virginia Community College, was a director of operations, and he had a region for a national tire company. And he quit his job to come to work for the company, and we opened tire stores.
Wow.
And he ran the 5 tire stores as the president and CEO of those tire stores.
That is tremendous, Wally. So all of them have been involved. You shared with us before we started filming this morning the importance of nepotism. Oftentimes a lot of folks say, no, 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 no. But this really worked very well for Eagle Group International.
I love nepotism. That is, I hired my kids, and my definition of nepotism is giving a job to somebody where there is no job.
Right.
But if there's a job, who else should you give it to? You give it to somebody who has a stake in the success of the company. So all my kids had a legitimate job with a legitimate responsibility. But I went further than that. If you had a son or a daughter who graduated from college and couldn't find a job right away, but now they don't have health care, I said, if we have an opening, hire them for that particular opening so that they can work and they'll be on the health care in case something happened to them. Right. And you wouldn't hire a daughter, or a cousin, or a friend unless you know they're going to produce. So now I'm getting good producers in the company. And at one time we had 25 different members of different families working in the company, to include my relatives beyond my children.
No.
But I encourage people to, if we have an opening, get one of your family members to come to the company. And I credit the success of the company with this family atmosphere. When I talk to the company as a whole, I talk about the family, the Eagle Group family. And when we had to lay off some people because a contractor owed us $10 million, I started crying because I was laying off people who I knew, not only my relatives, but relatives of people who worked in the company. Right. That's the sad part of hiring family members. But we regained traction, and all those people came back.
That's great. That's great. They knew that you had to step out and essentially lay off a family member, and they knew how hard it was for you to do. They knew there was always going to be a place for them if you regain
without
that
question. Without question. Everybody was so sympathetic. They were sorry for me. Right. I'm sorry for them. They have to let them go. They were sorry for me that they had to leave because they knew that wasn't in my DNA. Yes. But we were with $10 million in the hole at the time, and we had to recover from that.
Yes. You can do that too.com. T-O-O. You can do that too is the website for the book. A lot of great information on the site. On and on. There's information throughout the site. Excerpts from the book, great family pictures and otherwise, a lot of history about what all you're about, General Johnson. But of course, as you highlighted yesterday, Amazon.com is one of the best places to get a copy of I Can Do That.
Yes.
Which is really, really important. And that has been a great vehicle. And of course, you're finding more bookstores that are stepping up and saying, I want to get that book in
That's
here.
right.
I want to get that book in
It's a very
here.
easy read. It's very informative. Have a lot of chock full of information about values, about management tools, about leadership traits, and how to start and operate a company successfully.
Yes. As you flip through it, every chapter ends with a prayer. Here's one, page 45. Oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you for helping me use my positive paranoia as an effective management tool and to my advantage. Your cautious servant, Wally. And it ends with those handful of words. In whichever way it ends, a multitude of ones. You're traveling entrepreneur. I love so many of those. You're safe driving servant, Wally. They're beautiful. Had you ever seen another book that had prayers wrapping up every chapter?
No, but when I said those prayers, that's how I felt after I got through with that chapter. When I said you're traveling entrepreneur, my wife and I, in order to get money for the company, because we didn't have any investors, we had a home in Atlanta, we had a home in Georgetown.
Right.
And so we sold a home in Atlanta. And we commuted from Georgetown at the beginning of the week and lived in a hotel until to the next weekend. We traveled to Washington, D.C., to Richmond, Virginia, thereabouts on the Eastern Coast all the time. So we travel. We are traveling entrepreneurs.
Wow, wow. Wally, share with viewers real quick who may not understand what an entrepreneur is. What is Wally Johnson's definition of an entrepreneur? And of course, a spiritual entrepreneur at best here.
It starts with faith. Faith in you and your abilities based on your experiences, based on your education. And in my case, it was clearly my faith in God and the power of prayer, along with my education and hard work. But an entrepreneur needs to understand that you must work hard. All your working hours, you want to know, how can I make my product or my service better? How can I outdo my competition?
Right.
How can I be number one,
right,
so to speak? So if you want a 9-to-5 job, don't become an entrepreneur. You're going to have to work all the time in order to, even when you're successful, you got to continue to be successful to beat the competition. You have to stick with it and move forward. So for me, the entrepreneur is first having faith in your abilities, and in my case, I have faith in God and the power of prayer.
Right.
Without question, hard work.
Yes.
I tell all entrepreneurs, there are no shortcuts. You need a business plan. Now, some entrepreneurs think that that's the toughest thing in the world. It isn't. You can go to the local college or a Georgetown Tech. You can go on the internet. You can go to a local business chamber of commerce. They all will help you. There are many ways you can get help on how to write a business plan. But you must have a business plan because it tells you who your competition, how to price your product, how much money you're going to need as capital. And for most people, you're not going to have enough capital. I can almost guarantee you that.
Right.
But and there are going to be a lot of hurdles. In my case, I had bad credit. I had 3 kids in college at one time. And I was always borrowing money to get the company off of the ground. But I didn't let those little hurdles, those roadblocks, those setbacks hold me back. I was able to get around them through creative ways, all kinds of ways to get around that. But it is important that you have a business plan because it'll tell you how to get to where you are. And as I always say, you must set goals.
Right.
You must have a plan in place on how you're going to achieve those goals. And if you don't have goals on where you want to go with your company, it's going to be difficult to know how you're going to get there.
That's exactly right, Wally. Golly, those are great nuggets. It sounds like you could give a presentation on goal setting. I mean, truly.
I have given presentations on goal settings. That's so important to me.
Yes, truly.
And I preach that to my kids and grandkids and everybody who would listen. You must have goals and objectives and a plan to achieve those goals and objectives.
That is tremendous. Well, I hate to say it, much like yesterday, we're going to be running out of time soon, and we want to get to some of those pieces. Capital, raising money. For you, it was it
was a major effort. When I got through with my business plan and got my presentation all together with all my graphs and charts and stuff, I told my wife, here I go, we're going to get money, because we didn't have much money. You don't save a lot of money in the military. I had some 401k saved up from my time with the American Hospital Association, but I didn't have near enough capital I needed, so I needed some investors.